Hi, Krista. Welcome to the Integrative Health Coach Success Podcast.
Hi, Julia. So nice to be here.
Yes, I'm excited to have you. And I can't wait for you to share your story with the listeners. So let's kind of dive in, and we'll first kind of talk about what you're currently doing in kind of the integrative health practitioner space, clientele, what certifications you might be working through, and then we'll kind of back it up and talk about what got you here.
Okay, currently I am totally loving and immersed in IHP mastery right now, and learning a lot about what maybe I really want to do going forward. I'm also doing the business mentorship experience, so combining a little bit of everything with the experience that I've had coaching mostly midlife women as far as hormones, fat loss, and being completely exhausted and not understanding why they can't make progress because they're doing everything right. So that has been, I would say, the last 3 years. Prior to that, I was working with even some younger women, but some families and some children who needed help with how to better eat, especially if they were athletes. So I gave them some plans. I gave them some opportunities to try different kinds of foods that were better for them, I guess I should say. Testing the waters with maybe not drinking the Gatorade and trying to eliminate artificial colors and everything that they've been marketed to for so long. So that is, in a nutshell, where I've been. I've been coaching. I first got certified in 2009 at IIN, the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And that really opened my eyes up to what was out there as far as everything that perhaps wasn't legal in other countries that we were able to get easily here and not really think much of it. And then I had no intention at that point to go out and coach whatsoever. It was just primarily for my family. I have 2 girls. And at that time they were in elementary school. And I got so passionate about it afterwards. I would go into classrooms and teach, because I am actually a former elementary teacher. I would go in, and it was so much fun to teach them to look at labels. And we would do the Nutrition Detectives program. And so they would look at labels, and I taught them all the words for sugar that they had no idea. And then they'd take it home and show their parents. And then I think their parents were ready to strangle me because they would bring in the food, bring in what they had, and we would put it in the yes pile or the no pile. So essentially, I think I'm a teacher at heart, and I just love sharing information, but especially with children, because they are so impressionable that I have to say my kids are 21 and 23 now. And even I'm shocked, honestly, at how well they eat without me standing over them and telling them what they should and shouldn't have. So for those of you who are listening with littles, just remember that. Don't put extra pressure on yourself, but just know if you are living that lifestyle, they will absorb it and they will enjoy it. And it will shock you sometimes to hear what they'll tell their friends.
Yes.
And actually, was one of my favorite things was my kids played, they still play soccer, but we would host these pasta dinners, and instead of just doing the pasta dinners, I, of course, had to put out all the salads and all the vegetables, and I had a smoothie bar, and they were so excited for the smoothie bars. So those are all really good, healthy things you can do without really feeling you're pushing too hard as far as being perfect.
Yeah. And just educate. I mean, there's so many, I think, kids that once they know why something isn't great for them, like the education piece is like what you said, then they go and they make their own choices when you're not standing there. And understanding why sugar is bad and what are the names for sugar and what does it make you feel like if you eat it, and can you have a little bit and maybe you feel okay, but when you have too much, I mean, having just simple conversations with kids, I think a lot of people forget that they're just little-minded adults, and you can have very similar intellectual conversations with them if you're willing to kind of take the time to sit down and do it.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. I absolutely love, especially now that my kids are bigger, but to see the little ones people posting things, and it's to see them active in the kitchen is really good too. I think to give them a little bit of freedom and let them explore rather than worrying about them, messing up your kitchen and all that. I think it's really a nice thing for them to get their hands dirty and understand. So, and that is something I have to say now that especially one of my daughters is in a little apartment in Boston, and she's like, I gotta go. I gotta go to Trader Joe's now. I gotta go get my groceries. I'm like, you're a little me, aren't you? So, it's all really good as far as sharing. That's all fun.
Yes. Yeah. And teaching them to take care of their body, and that their body will perform to the extent, whether it's mentally, physically, to the extent that they take care of it. And it's a good lesson.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So let's back it up a little bit, because I know you have a pretty powerful personal story. And I'm interested kind of how that has maybe shaped what you feel like your kind of calling is to do in this coaching world. If you would share a little bit about that with our listeners, I think that would be inspiring.
Sure. I've been doing this health coaching. I feel like my health coaching has always come from a place of where I was at that moment and what I was dealing with. And because then you learn, you want to share. So I, started with the kids and started with the young athletes and decided to write a book on how to fuel your athletic family, just because my kids did just about every sport available and they loved it. It wasn't pushed on, by us. We just loved that they were so active. And I think it taught them a lot, but it started to become apparent to me that when you weren't feeding them properly, that it was going to not be great. And I saw a lot of kids who maybe didn't know any better, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have their treats. I really think they deserve their treats after their game and all that. But I wrote the book just to help families with like, hey, here's some recipes that I use. Here are some foods that you might want to try. Here are some, different things that you might want to start thinking about as far as because some people would ask me, well, how much protein should they have? So, you start to, because most kids don't eat a lot of protein. But when you are working out hard and for hours at a time, then having to stay up and do homework, it is essential to me. I felt like it was my full-time job really to take care of them and feed them. So I wrote the book, but that came after the year before. Let's see, that was 10 years ago. So 2 years prior, I had been busy as normal, and it was the holiday season, and I was just doing my thing with the kids. And at that time, they were soccer and swim. And I remember just it was right around the holidays, and you're busy. So you don't really think, at least I didn't at the time. I thought, well, I'm pushing a little too hard. I'm staying up late. I got to wrap these presents and I have to do this, that, and the other thing. And I started to have some really bad headaches. And yoga was such a big part of my life at that time. I remember being in class and darkness coming over one side of my head. Like I was in the middle of it and it just got black on one side. And I thought, well, that's weird. And I just kind of sat down, and then my teacher came over and he's like, what's wrong? And I just put my head down and into child's pose, and it went away. I drove home, and then there was more headaches and there was more cognitive issues starting. Then it happened again and in a yoga. And then finally my husband's like, you have to call the doctor. I'm like, yeah, I do. Cause I thought it was stress. I really did. I was looking up fibromyalgia. I was looking up everything, but, it ended up, we did go to, a GP. I went to a neurologist who sent me for an MRI, and it was I think it was Martin Luther King Day. And they put me on the phone with her, and she was panicked. I could hear it in her voice. And she's like, you have a brain tumor. And I was like, what? Who's going to pick my kids up from swim? That's exactly what I went to. I'm like, I got to call my husband. I need someone. So, there was a lot of disbelief because I was healthy. I was a health coach, and I ate right, and I was exercising and whatever. So it came out of left field, and I had 3 weeks to prep for surgery. After having, I think I had 2 to 3 consults. It wasn't something that I jumped in. My family was my team. I was just showing up at this point. They were asking the questions and taking notes and making phone calls, who knew who in the city, in New York City, and just to get different ideas. And sure enough, it needed to come out. The brain tumor needed to come out. Otherwise that was it. So when they told me the size of it and I saw the picture of it in MRIs, it was I think they say the size of a golf ball. So behind this eye, and you're just like shocked, like, well, what, like, is this it? Is this like, what am I going to, how? So I took what I had already been prepped for with a lot of meditation, a lot of journaling, a lot of alternative therapies, going to, I had some cranial sacral work done. I had acupuncture done. I had my aunt, who was certified Reiki. I don't know if she was a master yet at that time, come to my house with her friend. I had them send me Reiki. I had so much support. And I think, honestly, the mindset from listening to like Dr. Wayne Dyer and just the prep work got me to a point where, like, I would journal and I would meditate, and I named it. I named the tumor. I named her Lily because I just thought of, like, a lily comes from the mud and has to come to the top in order to bloom. And I just said, thank you very much, Lily. You've been, of good service, but now it's time to leave. And that was how I approached it. And I think going forward, and this was 12 years ago. I came out of it. I recovered. It wasn't easy. I did end up losing vision on one side because they believe my heart rate was so low that it had cut the blood flow to that optic nerve, who just went dead. So the optic nerve is still dead. I still have hope, though. They're telling me that I possibly may be part of like a stem cell regeneration of that nerve going forward. So that was 12 years ago. And I learned so much that I just wanted to share information that you can do hard things, and that things that may look impossible, it doesn't have to take over your life. So I took what I learned and I moved forward. I didn't really want to spend too much time dwelling in the past. So I just went forward and kept up with my kids and wanted to continue helping people get well. And I was just an oddball. Like, I didn't really want to I didn't want to get any pity from anyone. I didn't want anyone to feel bad for me. It made me stronger, and I took that. But looking back now, as I'm doing mastery and I'm really asking myself some soul searching questions, I keep getting this feeling inside me that I might want to go and help those people who are in the same situation that I was 12 years ago, whether that be they're in watch and wait, which is sometimes when you're diagnosed with a meningioma, it's not crucial to take action at that time. So you're in a watch and wait, or most people from the studies I've been reading are like me, where you have a certain set time that you go in and you have what they call craniotomy, which to remove it. So I've been thinking about possibly, trying to support those who need me, because I've been there and I've done that. And I now combine that with IHP2 training and, the whole de-stress protocol going into it or coming out of it. It might be something that I can better serve people with, because I had two people I talked to the entire time beforehand. One had been through it. She was through the surgeon's office, and one was a neighbor's friend who had been through it. And that helped me so much. So I'm just thinking support systems, like think about your friends when you have little kids, like you all support each other. So not that there's not already communities out there, but I'm thinking perhaps of incorporating that along with the hormone and menopausal, perimenopause to reach out and see if there's an opportunity to grow with that.
Yeah. Oh, what such an inspiring story. And it sounds like your mindset was such a pivotal point to one, getting through the diagnosis and the surgery and your recovery. The mindset in and of itself was probably the differentiating factor. And you were lucky enough to have some support, but also to have a really strong foundation of kind of you working on that on your own. And that is probably what you would be able to kind of help somebody support and go through that in such a meaningful way, where you're able to kind of be that mindset support for them in a way.
I hope so. I mean, I feel like that's my calling right now. That's what I can do. So, I would put that out there and see what I can do with it. So this is just something that came on recently. So I think it's kind of funny how we we kind of do what's expected. And then to take a step back, like I actually took 3 months off of coaching between October 1st and January 1st. And I needed that to step back and see what is it that really is drawing me right now. And this is where I am right now. And there's a lot of support out there. There's also a need for more research in that area. There are some studies that are saying it is a hormonal situation with this kind of brain tumor. So, I mean, I think it's something like 88% women get it. So, there's all that too to look into and get involved with.
Yes. And I think it sheds your kind of transition with your thinking about where you're wanting your coaching practice to go, is kind of a reflection too of that whole IHP mastery teaching, where they kind of go away from, the actual labs and, quantitative type of results. And they do get into like the soul of it. And, why are you doing this work, and what's calling you, and what's driving you, and how does it make you feel when you do it? And all of those kind of questions bring up, I think, can shift how you feel about the work that you're doing. And I think it's such an important kind of thing to highlight, because it's not this linear process where we just like get into, coaching and kind of go straight up one way. For some people, it works that way. But I think there's ebb and flows with kind of what we feel called to share and help people with, based on kind of where we're at.
Yeah, definitely. At least for me, that's where it is. I tend to be, I put a lot out there to the universe. I really do. And I sometimes wait too long. Like I'm just waiting for something to drop in my lap. But sometimes that's what you have to do. You just kind of have to go with your gut feeling and your intuition and see where that feels best, and look at your options. So that's, there's a lot there. I have a little bit more experience than a lot of the health coaches because of my age. So I've seen a lot. I've been there, done that. And gosh, if I knew then what I know now, and if I had you as a health coach, like my sleep would have been better. The toxins would have been less, but that's, you go through your journey to get where you are, and then take it, the best way that you can. So that's what I just hope to help people, realize that they can do hard things, and that, sometimes it is your subconscious are telling you the same thing over and over again, and that you just have to shift that. You have to tell yourself you can do things.
Yes. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that literally gets up every morning and does it. Right. And we can do it. It has to be done. I always say this, like, if you're going to get up and you're going to do your day, you have options to do it this way or that way. And you might as well have, do your hard things in a way that actually lead to, gratifying results. If it's going to just be that you move through life anyway, making the choice to kind of go down a specific path can make all the difference. And you would have gone through your surgery regardless. You would have gone through recovery. You would have done it all. But had you gone through it with a different mindset and with different techniques and different support, there may have been different outcomes based on kind of the path you chose to take.
Yes, for sure. Definitely. I do feel like I was put in that spot, like everything led up to it, right where as it should have. Would I want to repeat it? No, but I think that if you need to reprogram your mind, like I really had to reprogram my mind in 3 weeks. Yes, I was ready. Yes, I was meditating. Yes, I was doing yoga, but you really had to dig in and believe. You really have to believe. You have to have the emotion behind the words that you believe it's going to be okay. And for some people, it just doesn't happen, because I see them like posting on the Facebook pages, like, and not that this is wrong, but they are really looking for support in that last minute. Instead of, I shouldn't say that instead of just going for it, but I think we all need support. And sometimes though, we do have to just be sure that we're taking the steps to get to where we need to be. And
taking some initiative in and of, getting external support, but also helping yourself with that support, and not just relying on somebody else to kind of feed you, the support that you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes. And I think one thing that is so meaningful to kind of highlight is, we kind of can have two ways to look at something. Fear, I think, can kind of, you said you had to reprogram your mind to like truly believe, and fear can kind of be the biggest emotion, right? That overtakes anything. It doesn't matter if we're talking about walking into brain surgery or if we're talking about walking down the street, right? Fear is one of the biggest emotions that I think as human beings we have to overcome. And trusting, like you were saying, you have to like trust is a huge thing with anything that anybody's going through. And I think being able to kind of share the ability for you to shift that in one of the biggest moments of your life with anybody going through any diagnosis, right? In any coaching capacity is such a meaningful thing to be able to kind of coach somebody on.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, I don't think you should go through anything like that by yourself. And from what I see out there in these communities, some people have they really don't have a actual foundational community. So if you have one friend that can say the right words or send you a text or, bring you, I can't tell you how many people brought me things like beforehand, like little bits of inspirational jewelry and food. And it just goes to show that people really are good at heart. Like they really want to help. Sometimes you don't know how to help, but everyone really has their heart in a good place. I think, at least from going through what I saw. And that goes for all the different, like even the lab techs, the people who I actually had to get radiation as well. About 2 years after surgery, my doctor couldn't get the whole tumor. So it was literally wrapped around my carotid artery when I went in, and he had to leave about 5% because my quality of life would be non-existent. I would have been like, I had paralysis, like a bad stroke victim. So when you lose your, this is another one, when you lose your vision. So I lost my vision in my left eye, but when you go back for your MRIs and to see, he's like, okay, I think we need to do radiation. And I was like, whoa. I need radiation. He's like, well, yeah, we need to, shrink this. And I was like, okay. And so we looked into that, and and he's a rock star surgeon. I'm glad I found him. But in doing the research that I did through one of these Facebook groups, I did find another alternative to which the ego in him did not take, it didn't come, he didn't get mad at me for finding another option that I ended up doing. So I ended up going for the kind of radiation that is pinpoint at UPMC. Am I saying that? It was University of Pittsburgh Medical Center that they have. It was at this point 10 years ago. It was wild, like what they can see with this little lens, and they're circling around your head, and you don't feel a thing. I had no side effects. It was 4 days, and that was it. Because what they said was your nerves, your optic nerves, and I may be wrong, but they cross. It's right here. If it grows 1/8 of an inch, you're going to be blind in the other eye. So we have to take care of this. And I was like, oh, good thing I didn't know this for, the last 2 years, but okay. And then those people, like what I'm just saying is there are so many good people out there that, are available, and you have to open your mind to just kind of let it happen.
Yes. Yeah. And again, like the trusting of you did your research,